All right, this is the second video to talk about domain and range in your notebook. So I have two more pictures over here that ask for us to identify is your picture a function, yes or no, and then identify your input and your outputs. Now in this picture over here, so it says domain and range here, what I want to do is identify the leftmost point on my picture to my rightmost point. That's what domain is because my x-axis goes left to right. So another kind of easy way to think about this would be to think about your picture in terms of curtains. So I have some Post-its here and I thought this might be helpful. So as I'm like curtains on a wall, like you open them up to let the sun shine in. So that's kind of what domain does. So I'm looking as I'm opening up my curtains, how wide do my curtains need to go? Well, if I'm moving my curtains, I notice over here that this curtain is going to stop because the graph stops here. It doesn't exist over here at -5 for an x. So it starts over here at -4. And so what I'm going to put for my domain here is that it starts on the left side at -4 and it's equal to -4 because that's closed. Now what happens is as I open my curtain over here, I notice it's going to keep going right, keeps going right, keeps going right, keeps going right. Well, this arrow is telling me that this is going to keep going to the right. So if this never stops, then that means my rightmost point is going to keep going forever. So that's my left to right introduction in terms of like curtains. Okay, now opposite, the range is the y values of your function, which means on your y-axis, because this is our y-axis going up and down, how low does your picture go? How high does the picture go? So what we're going to be doing is looking at our low to high. And again, we're going to use these curly brackets because we don't have a set of points here, so we need to represent our interval instead of points because this would be a set of points, very distinct numbers that we would list out. But here, if it's a continuous line, we need a continuous interval, which is going to be a compound interval like we did in chapter 3. So I'm going to get my Post-its again. Now, range, I said low to high. So I kind of think about this as a garage door. So how far does your garage door go down and how far does it go up? So I notice that the lowest my garage door will go, this y value here, so on the y-axis would be 0. That's the lowest this point is. So again, that point was -4, 0, but I need the 0 part for the range because the range is the y values. So the lowest it goes is to 0. Now if that's the lowest it goes, now as I'm opening up my garage door, here it's going up a little more, I notice my function is still going. And then I get to this point where I see this arrow. And now what does that arrow mean? It doesn't only mean that it's going to keep going right, but doesn't that also mean that this is going to keep going up, right? I think that's going up. So if it's going to continue to get taller and taller and taller and taller and taller, maybe not fast, but it's still getting taller, then that means this function is never going to stop and it's going to continue to get to positive infinity. Now notice how I have the equal to here because of this closed point, but you can never equal infinity. So anytime you use one of these symbols, you cannot use the equal to symbol there. So equal here, not equal here. Okay, so again, left to right, low to high. My domain is my x values, and we want to write left to right. So what I'm going to do is look at my function. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start on the left side because this is the leftmost side of my x-axis, and I'm going to look and see, can I find a point? Okay, the leftmost point, the x value that we see, is a -3. Now this is a point, so I'm going to list it as a point. So now I'm going to keep going. Keep opening that curtain. Oh, I see another one. Okay, the x value here would be at -1. Now I'm going to keep opening my curtain. Oh, I see another value. looks like this x value here would be 0. Now I'm going to keep opening my curtain. Oh, I see another point over here. The x value is at 1. So I'll put a 1 down. And I'll keep opening my curtain a little bit more. I see another point there at 2. And then I'm going to keep opening my curtain, and I notice that I have another point in between 2 and 3, so I'm going to say that looks roughly about 2.5. And I'll keep opening my curtain wider, wider. Well, there are no more points over here at 4, 5, or 6, so I'm done listing out my points. Now, opposite to this, our range is our y values. And your y-axis goes low to high. That's your y-axis. Low, lowest to highest. Okay, so now I gotta open up my Post-its the opposite way. So I'm gonna start at the very bottom of the picture, and I'm gonna start finding my lowest point. So this point, the lowest it reaches according to the y-axis is a -2. So I'm gonna put down here -2. So I know that's the lowest, so I'm going to move my garage door here, and I'm going to open up my garage door a little more. Now I notice there's another point here, and that's at a y value, because range is y, of -1. Now I'm going to open it a little more. Oh, I found another one. Looks like that y value is in between 0 and 1, so I'm going to go with 1/2. I'm going to keep opening my garage door, up, 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 because it's low to high. Oh, I see a couple points here. I don't need to list output here or even an input twice, so I'm just going to put the number 3 once. Now I'm going to open it higher again. Do we have any more points up high? Oh, I found the highest point. The highest point according to the y-axis is the number 5. Now, to check your work, if this would be an easier way for you, what I would do is just list out what these points are. Can you label them correctly? Can you label this point? This point would be -3 for an x and -2 for a y. This point would be -1 for the x, +3 for the y. This point is 1/2, and actually that was my y value. Let me erase that. It's 0 up 1/2. And then this point here is at 1, 5. This point here is at 2, 3. And this point here is at 2.5, -1. So if you look, the x of your points should match up with your domain, except this needs to go in order smallest to greatest. And the y values of your points should match up with your range, but again, it needs to go smallest to biggest, and don't repeat any number. Now look at your x list. Did any of these numbers repeat? If your answer is no, then I would say yes, this is a function. Now on this picture, because this is a graph, if I were to draw any random vertical line on the paper, how many times would a vertical line cross that function? If your answer is 1 time only, then yes, this is a function.